Sam Altman is the CEO of an $86 billion company. He is touring the globe, meeting with people like Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, as if he is an official ambassador for the future. Less than 48 hours after that international victory lap, OpenAI's board fired him. They claimed he was not consistently candid. Over the next 5 days, Altman rallied his loyal employees and Microsoft, OpenAI's biggest investor. By Tuesday night, he forced the board to reinstate him as CEO. His survival suggests a strength beyond technical expertise, a mastery of accumulating and wielding power. To understand how he survived this stunning executive ouster, we have to look at how he built that leverage in the first place. Altman grew up in a privileged family in St. Louis. He was smart, charismatic, and incredibly self-assured. In the early 2000s, when some high school classmates wanted to boycott an assembly about sexuality, he stood up in front of the entire school and announced he was gay. But that confidence had a sharp edge. When playing board games with his siblings, he would declare himself the leader and dictate all the rules. When he was 13, he unilaterally decided his family would no longer celebrate Christmas. Years later, when his father passed away, he instructed his younger siblings on exactly how many minutes each of them was allowed to speak at the funeral. From childhood through adulthood, Altman operated with total self-belief. He instinctively assumed the role of the ultimate authority in any situation, even over systems and traditions he did not own. In 2005, a 19-year-old Altman joined the first ever batch of the Y-Combinator startup accelerator. He was building an early mobile location app called Looped. The app itself was nothing special, and the company was struggling. When Altman heard Boost Mobile was about to sign a deal with a competitor, he flew to Southern California uninvited and waited outside an executive's office to ask for 10 minutes of their time. He walked into the conference room wearing cargo shorts, sat cross-legged in his chair, and held court. Despite looking like a high schooler, his command of the material and his poise disarmed the executives completely. He walked out with the deal. Looped eventually sold for $5 million. The app was a footnote in tech history, yet Altman walked away with a multi-million-dollar payout and a reputation as a closer. He had discovered that selling himself to the right people was more valuable than the code he was building. After Looped, Altman started spending time with Silicon Valley's reigning elite. He built close relationships with influential mentors like Peter Thiel, securing their money and their connections. He also grew extremely close to Y-Combinator head Paul Graham. In 2014, Graham stepped down and named the 28-year-old Altman as his successor. Suddenly, he was running the most powerful startup network in the world. He operated quietly behind the scenes, using his vast web of connections to resolve $100 million corporate conflicts with a single 15-minute phone call. By consolidating the wealth and connections of others, he transitioned from a startup founder into a vital broker of power in Silicon Valley. Around 2015, Elon Musk became intensely worried about artificial intelligence. Google had acquired top AI talent, and Musk believed its co-founder, Larry Page, was too casual about the safety risks of a potential monopoly. Altman saw an opening. He orchestrated a dinner at a luxury hotel in Menlo Park, bringing together Musk's capital and top AI researchers to secure a $1 billion commitment for a rival lab. They called it OpenAI. To ensure it wouldn't be corrupted by profit motives, they designed it as an open-source, non-profit structure. Its mandate was to develop safe AI that would benefit all of humanity, not enrich shareholders. This design created an immediate friction. A safety-first, non-profit board was now legally responsible for managing a CEO whose career was built on aggressive expansion and deal-making. In November 2023, the board followed through on its non-profit mandate and fired Sam Altman. The decision was rooted in the long-standing tension between the company's safety mission and Altman's drive for corporate maneuvering. But the board completely miscalculated his power and leverage. Drawing on 2 decades of cultivating loyalty and influence, Altman rallied his massive network and dismantled the board's authority in a matter of days. Months earlier, Altman had sat before Congress, raised his right hand, and testified that no single person or company should be trusted with artificial intelligence. Within a week of his firing, he returned to the company with a more supportive board and total control. The same impulse for authority that led him to dictate the rules of a childhood game now places him at the helm of the most significant technological transition of our time. The standard expectation in Silicon Valley is that ultimate authority belongs to the engineers who write the underlying code. Sam Altman contradicts that archetype. Before he ran the most valuable AI company on Earth, his primary product history was a largely forgotten location-sharing app for flip phones. By 2023, he had secured immense geopolitical stature, operating effectively as a state-level ambassador for the future of technology. He shapes domestic regulatory environments by directly advising the highest levels of the United States government. He occupies the exact same rooms as the world's most powerful international figures. Altman's rise demonstrates a highly replicable algorithm for structurally accumulating power. This graph maps out the upward leverage framework. He identifies distinct phases of his career and links them to exponentially compound his influence. Understanding this specific operational framework is mandatory for modern leaders. Today, soft structural power dictates the exact direction of our hard physical infrastructure. The first pillar of this algorithm is the apex node strategy. This involves bypassing middle management entirely and directly targeting the single most powerful individual in a given system. Altman started on the standard elite technical pathway, studying computer science at Stanford, before making a crucial pivot. He dropped out in 2005 to join the inaugural, completely unknown batch of a startup accelerator called Y-Combinator. His first company, Looped, faced a dire operational reality. The product was modest, the business model was wobbly, and they desperately needed a major corporate partnership to survive. They found an opportunity with Boost Mobile, but they were hours away from losing the deal to a larger, more established competitor. Altman bypassed traditional channels. He flew across the state to Southern California, showed up at the executive offices, and refused to leave until he secured a face-to-face meeting. In that room, he deployed his core tactic, extreme domain mastery. At 19 years old, dressed in cargo shorts, he sat cross-legged in a conference chair and projected total, unshakable command of the telecommunications material. He secured the telecommunications partnership that day. The sheer force of his competence projection overrode the deficiencies of his actual product. He immediately transitioned this exact behavioral pattern to capture his most crucial early relationship, Paul Graham, the apex authority of the early startup ecosystem. By deploying that same extreme competence, Altman prompted Graham to compare him to a 19-year-old Bill Gates within 3 minutes of their first conversation. Demonstrating freakish domain mastery acts as the primary mechanism for capturing the sponsorship of industry kingmakers. Once an apex node is secured, the operator moves to step 2, mirroring. This involves internalizing and outwardly projecting the mentor's specific worldview. Altman rapidly adopted Paul Graham's persona. He transitioned from a software founder into a startup philosopher, offering high-level advice to his peers. Comparing their foundational texts reveals a direct ideological transfer between mentor and protege. The core professional habits to one's will. This relentless, optimistic projection allowed Altman to secure alliances with highly pessimistic network nodes, like billionaire investor Peter Thiel. These relationships provided immediate financial advantages. Paul Graham personally invited Altman into highly restricted, lucrative angel investments, like the early funding round for Stripe. In return, Altman provided functional utility to these networks. He evolved into an elite fixer for other founders within the ecosystem. The mechanics of this soft power relied on his reputation as an intense, active listener. He could rapidly synthesize opposing demands and find alignment between hostile parties. He used this skill to resolve $100 million negotiation deadlocks with a single 15-minute phone call. At this level of business, elite conflict resolution and active listening generate immense structural leverage as hard operational assets. By 2014, Y-Combinator faced a crisis of scale. The organization had outgrown its founder's management style, and Paul Graham stepped down, naming the 28-year-old Altman as president. This triggered an architectural divergence, splitting Y-Combinator into two completely distinct operational phases. This diagram illustrates Y-Combinator's original architecture under Graham. It was highly focused, localized, and deep. The limitation of this model is visible here. It required immense personal intimacy and dedicated mentorship time for individual programmers. When Altman took control, he instituted the Maestro model. The narrow vertical structure shatters outward into a sprawling horizontal matrix. He bolted massive new verticals onto the framework, pushing the organization into late-stage funding, nuclear fusion, and universal basic income research. Y-Combinator physically moved out of intimate hacker houses and into formidable, heavily scaled institutional architecture. This expansion required Altman to coordinate policy and capital across multiple discrete industries simultaneously. The ultimate rule of the Maestro model is clear. True scale requires abandoning the desire to play the instruments yourself. You must aggressively delegate execution to domain experts. Altman's transformation of Y-Combinator proves that maximum organizational influence results from continually expanding a horizontal network of controlled nodes. In 2015, during a private dinner at the Rosewood Hotel, Altman executed the highest stakes repetition of his upward leverage framework to date. The attendees were facing an existential external threat. Google had established a centralized monopoly over the talent and computing power required for artificial intelligence. Altman countered this by identifying and securing the exact apex nodes required to build a rival organization. He started by capturing the ultimate capital source, a billion-dollar commitment from Elon Musk. He then secured the necessary technical execution node, extracting elite researcher Ilya Sutskever directly from Google's own ranks. Altman served as the central hub, synthesizing these disparate forces into a single cohesive entity called OpenAI. He translated the skills of a startup incubator president into those of a global capital allocation engine, driving the deployment of an entirely new technological industry. In the modern technological ecosystem, architecting networks and projecting competence provides a more effective vector for dominance than raw technical superiority alone. Months earlier, Altman had sat before Congress, raised his right hand, and testified that no single person or company should be trusted with artificial intelligence. Within a week of his firing, he returned to the company with a more supportive board and total control. The same impulse for authority that led him to dictate the rules of a childhood game now plays